Hey guys, Owen Dino Studios here with a quick update video on the props. So I got them all, all restored, and they look exactly like they do back in the TV show whenever I got them from the auction. So here's the coach. He's on a stand so that he doesn't fall over. As you probably saw in the original video, his head does come off. His arms do move, so I'll show that in a second. Next we have the moles. Their head does swivel, or their heads do swivel. I will show it in a second. I attached a battery pack and made sure all the wiring was correct, and they do work. And lastly, we have all the soccer players, so I will show those guys all standing up in a second. So yeah, here we go. Alright, so here we have the first one. Each of their arms move and their head swivels. So yeah, some of them do have trouble standing up, so we need to hold them, but yep, here's the first one. And then here's the back of him. There's his shoes. This one did have trouble standing up backwards, I think, so yep. Here's the next one. Same thing. Arms move, neck moves. A little detail you might be able to see on these is that their necks are made of little sticks, as you can see there. Definitely clever on the model makers to do that, so yep. Here's the next one. A little fun fact about these guys is that all of their hats are held on by a bit of blue tack. It's the same blue tack that the model makers used back in whenever these were made, so yep. Here's the next one. As you can see, his neck's a bit long. For some reason his head doesn't move, so I'm assuming that prop store must have glued his head on or something like that. His arms move though, so that's good. Here's the next one. All of their scars are removable, by the way. I believe on this one, her head can come off. I'll show that in a second. Yeah, so essentially here's the three components. As you can see, we have the head, which is on the stick, and then you have the little scarf, and then you have the body. It's kind of like a little puzzle to put them together, but well, actually it's kind of like a little Lego minifigure. So you put on, let's see, put on the scarf very carefully there. Don't want to break it. There we go. And then we have the head. And the head just fits on just like that. There you go. It's like a little Lego minifigure. Here's the next one. As you can see here, they're all made of the same components: the head, the scarf, and the body. So, yep. And here's the last one. I do love how each one looks completely different from one another. Like different heights, different hats, things like that. And the model makers really knew how to make a full-on soccer team. So, there's the players. Let's look at the flags. So here's the first flag. I'm pretty sure that James is wearing these on him in the episode. I'll put up a picture of him right. So, yep, looks like that's the official Sodor flag. And then here we have the smaller flag. I believe this one over here was meant to go on James, and then this one the players held in the episode. As you can see, there's a bit of residue from when they were filming. So, yep, it's pretty cool. And here we have the full team together. You can see the little flags there, and each individual player. I believe there are more made, but this is what came in the auction. So 7 total. So here we have Tommy Thomas. And there they are to scale. There you can see a top-down view. It's about half a running board for each of them. So, yeah. Next we have the 80th anniversary Push-Along Thomas. I believe they are about the same length. Maybe Thomas is maybe a bit longer, which is pretty cool. And then finally, we have the Cole Props Thomas to scale, which is what they would have scaled with in the show. So I'll stand one of them up and show you how that looks. So here we have Thomas, put one of the flags in his funnel. And then you have to scale is one of the players. So, yep. There's the front view, and then there's the side view. So, yep, it's pretty cool. All right, so next up is the coach. As you can see, very sophisticated model. I believe it's made out of completely wood, I want to say. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or in the comments, but here we are. I will take him out of the stand in a second and show you what he looks like. But here's his head. Very similar method of connecting him to the body as the players. There's his face. I believe it was repainted at some point in production, because that doesn't look anything similar to any of the faces. There's his hat, as you can see there. There's the back of his head. There's the other side. Yep. Alright, so here's his body now. As you can see, the arms have a little joint there. They can move, as you can see here. They can move back and forth. Any way the model makers needed them to move, they can move. So there's that. There's the body. There's the side. There's the back. And then here is the front side. And then here's the front. So yeah, pretty cool. So here he is next to scale with a few Thomases. He was built as like a close-up prop, so he's obviously not going to be scaled to any of them. Here he is against the Cole Props Thomas, which is a 1-to-1 replica of the Gauge 1 Thomas. And then next to Tomy Thomas, there you go. And then next to the Push-Along Thomas, as you can see here. He'll be a bit taller because of the base, but overall I'd say that's about 3 or 4 Push-Along Thomases high, so yep. Alright, and next up we have the Moles, which is the special attraction. If you get that reference, you should definitely totally like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you do. So here they are. I attached them to a 6-volt battery pack, which is the same voltage as the servo under. There's the 3 moles. Looks like they got damaged at some point before the prop store auction, probably in Mattel's archives. They're on this base, and I will flip it over in a second and show you what's under it. So here's the underside. You can see the servo is glued onto there. It's still the original servo. You can see the little label there. Then you can see the transmitter. It's taped down here. For functioning purposes, it's not connected to anything. Unfortunately, it does not work with any of the remotes that I have. Here's the little antenna as well. It got glued over here. This little piece here, I'm assuming held the battery because it's just wide enough to hold this battery over here. You can see all the wires, so there's a positive and a negative going from the battery over to the new little transmitter that I put in here, receiver. And then the 3 wires go from the receiver to this little switch in the back here. And then that goes to the servo, which then functions the 3 moles. So I'll show you what that's like in a second. Here we go. Alright, so here we have the moles. This is just a, well, it's for an RC car, but it works for steering the car. I got it on Amazon, about 15 bucks or so. So let's see, flip the switch. That's the original switch. And by the way, this whole platform was covered in sand, so they couldn't, like, you couldn't see the platform in the show, but slip it on, and you can hear the servo already starting. So if I turn this wheel left, you can see they turn their heads. If I turn it right, you can see their heads turn that way. So, yep. Just like in the show, you can have them, you know, go like that. I'm trying to do this with one hand, it's not really working too well. But as you can see, you know, you start here, go that way, you know. Overall, pretty cool. And one more thing, as you probably heard in the video, the servo is pretty loud. Because of the force needed to turn the 3 heads at the same time. It's not an issue. I just need to be careful when I do. So yeah, there's the 3 moles. They are working. And if anyone out there owns a prop, you can probably connect the same remote here. It's a Turbo Racing, whatever that says. And then you can use the wheel to turn the heads, so, or turn the eyes, whatever you have. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, so last but not least, here is the boat. It says Bankert on the side, as you can probably see there. Bankert, there you go. Overall, very nice prop. I did take it out of its package, and there was a bit of damage, unfortunately, shipping back here. This wood piece, this little plank here, is meant to be on the inside to hold it together. But as it is sitting, it's not an issue. Looks like, I did a bit of research, and looks like this mast was meant to sit on a giant blue part here, and it was meant to be this, like, huge, you know, great boat. But it was never used in the show, unfortunately, so they never finished the prop. Here's an extra propeller, it looks like. As you can see here, made out of metal. Yeah, here's a few spare pieces. Not sure what this is. If anyone knows in the comments, please do tell me. And then the overall, here, I pieced this part back together, but this part would have likely sat like way up here on top of the blue piece. I'll put up a picture on screen of what it's supposed to look like. And then there's a few strings that are supposed to go to the boat. Unfortunately, it was never finished, so we can only dream what it could have been. Looks like there's a little, I guess this is French flag. Pretty nice. Here's the front. As you can see, I'll try to move this string out of the way. There's the name, Bankert. There was a little foam that came with it, so I just put that on the side there to further not damage the boat. Here's the front. Looks like the windows got a bit yellowed over time. I'm trying my best to not let that continue. Here's the back. As you can see, very nice boat. There's a little plank that was sitting, it's supposed to sit, I believe, right here on the inside, but it was sticking out, so I just had to remove it, unfortunately. Here's the back. It says Bankert on the back, if you could see there. And then here's the bottom. The paint, unfortunately, chipped off there a bit. And then as you can see, here's the propeller. It does spin, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, overall a huge prop that unfortunately went to waste. There's a lot of little bits and bobs that tell a story, but unfortunately it never came to fruition. One more thing is here's Thomas next to it. As you can see about here, there's a straight-on view. Looks like Thomas is definitely smaller than it for sure. Yeah, looks like Thomas is about as big as the bottom part here. So, yeah. Alright, so that does it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys want to see anything else with these props. I'm totally open to reshooting a scene from the episodes, or, you know, things like that. We do have the Cole Props Thomas over here. We can always use that. But yeah, overall, thanks for watching.